Hi everyone and welcome to our daily show, The Big Story, where we discuss the hottest topics of the day right here in the heart of the newsroom. My name is Alyssa Wu and I'm coming to you live from the Straits Times. We are streaming live on Facebook and on YouTube. If you're watching us on YouTube, do subscribe to our channel and click that bell icon to be notified whenever we go live. I'll be joined very shortly by my newsroom colleagues where we'll discuss the topics that got you talking today. After 38 years, luxury travel retailer DFS Group will close its liquor and tobacco duty-free store at Changi Airport by June next year. 3 firms have submitted bids to take over. They are the Sheila Duty Free Store of South Korea, Lotte Duty Free, also from Korea, and Deborah Heinemann of Germany. A new operator will be announced in November. To talk more about the changing travel retail scene and how this has impacted retailers here, I have journalist Melissa Heng with me. Hi Melissa.
Hi.
Now DFS Group is only withdrawing their liquor and tobacco concession, but they'll be keeping their other retail stores. I understand there's one at Scotts Road, which sells other things such as clothes and then also perfume and cosmetics. Now what was the reason that the group gave for exiting Changi Airport?
So I think for them it was an enterprise move because DFS Group as a whole, globally, they are still doing really well. They've shown positive financial results in the last year, but their CEO said that they are no longer financially viable. It wasn't a financially viable option for them to stay at Changi Airport, and he said he cited reasons like changing regulations concerning the sale of liquor and tobacco and geopolitical uncertainty as reasons why they wanted to pull out. So yeah.
Did he elaborate on that, like on geopolitical uncertainty?
Not really, but we do know that when it comes to changing regulations, Singapore has been tightening some of the liquor laws in recent years. So that might have been one of the things that impacted their decision.
I understand. So there were actually a few reports a few months ago about DFS Group working closely with Changi Airport Group on its luxury e-commerce platform, which is called iShop, ChangiWines.com. So actually DFS is selling some of their wines, some of their champagnes and sake on the website, and it's also GST absorbed, right? So maybe it's not much of a surprise that they've decided to exit Changi Airport because there they don't have to spend money on lease, on manpower, and such. So, what do you think? What do you think about this situation where DFS is selling their liquor now online, e-commerce, whereas the other interested firms, if they do end up winning the bid, they will have to spend money on paying rent.
Right. So, I think again, it's about the strategy and differing business models. So, for some companies, so Changi Airport is one of the busiest airports and travel hubs in Asia, right? And for some companies, they want a specific location because that location will bring them profits. And then for others, they want to be at a specific location because being there raises their profile and their brand awareness. So yeah, it depends on which one you want. Also, being at Changi is not always easy because besides the monthly rental, there are also other rental commitments that you have to make in your contract with them.
Can you elaborate a bit more on that?
So for example, I think for the liquor and tobacco concession, besides a basic monthly rental, on top of that in your contract you also have to promise certain percentages depending on different KPIs. And it's all worked out between Changi and whoever gets the concession. Yeah.
So in your story, you also reported on how the travel retail scene has changed over the years. Can you tell us what this change is and how it has impacted the retailers here?
Right. So DFS Group has been at Changi Airport for like almost 4 decades, right? When they first started at Changi Airport, that was a time when people needed to travel to buy certain things that they couldn't find at home. Whereas now, a lot of things that you can find at the airport, you can also buy online, or you can find elsewhere shopping, or people buy it when they travel to other countries. So it has changed, and I think that travel retail has to adapt to those changes as well. So travel retailers need to offer like exclusive products and experiences at really exclusive prices also to attract consumers lah.
Okay, thank you so much, Melissa.
Yeah, thank you.
Now on to our second segment. The Centrepoint Metro, which has been its anchor tenant since 2014, will close its flagship outlet on September 15. It will be replaced by French sporting goods giant Decathlon. Several other tenants, including Times bookstores and Tiempo Jewelry, have also announced their plans to move out. To talk about the tenant situation at the Centrepoint, I have journalists Tiffany and Timothy with me. Hi both.
Hi.
Hello. Okay. So Tiffany, what does Metro's closure mean for the department store and the mall?
So Metro took over as Centrepoint's anchor tenant back in 2014 when Robinsons moved out. So they took over the 6 floors and made that its flagship store. So they've only been there for about 5 years. And so over the weekend, they were having these pretty big clearance sales, like 85% off. And when I visited, staff there said that it would actually be closing next month, middle of next month, because Metro had decided not to renew the lease. And so Metro is saying that this is a business decision, you know, because of changing market conditions and things like that. But so now it'll be left with only 2 stores, one at Paragon and one at Causeway Point. But it's kind of not news really that things have been challenging for department stores in general, because you've got the rise of e-commerce, and then you've got really high rental rates as well, which, you know, department stores typically need quite a bit of space. But there's also this other factor where retail experts we spoke to said that both Metro and the Centrepoint have kind of fallen behind the times a bit in terms of keeping up with what it is that you know, young shoppers are really looking for, and they also both kind of lack a clear identity there. And also there doesn't seem to be as high footfall in the mall in general if you were to visit over a weekend, for example.
Now, I believe all 3 of us, we fall under the category of younger shoppers because we are all millennials. So what are your thoughts about, are you surprised that Metro is suffering this fate, or like Centrepoint more suffering this fate? In your personal opinion as a shopper and as a millennial?
Well, not really actually, because personally I've never actually been to the Centrepoint. And you know, the mall, it just, the impression that people in my generation or those younger have is that it's not really the place to be. You know, it's either if you're a tai-tai or an old person or an old tai-tai, then you go to this sort of place, because there's really not much there aside from retail. At least that's the impression that I would get. Yep. Whereas say a mall like Plaza Singapura, for example, you know, it's located at the intersection of many MRT lines, so it's easy to get to. There's a nice mixture of entertainment, retail, and you know, dining outlets over there. And yeah, there's a lot of things that the youth like to do. You can go watch a movie, you can go play escape room. Yeah, so as compared to the Centrepoint, which doesn't really seem to have much.
Tiffany, what are your thoughts?
About what, sorry?
Are you surprised that the Centrepoint, you know, they're losing a lot of their tenants, they have low footfall, and that Metro is also moving out?
Not really. So the mall did go through a $50 million revamp about 3 years ago, so that was a lot of infrastructure stuff, widening the entrance and all that, but also introducing a new tenant mix. But it still kind of lacks that unique draw, like, you know, Tim was saying, that gives you a reason to want to go and visit the mall, unlike some of the other newer malls that have come up around it, which I think has also drawn some of the crowds away. Like, for example, Orchard Central, 313. Orchard Central has, you know, Don Don Donki, which has been quite popular as well with younger people. So I think the departure of Metro and also some of the other tenants, Times Bookstore and a number of others that are leaving, kind of gives it the opportunity to rebrand itself a bit. And they've said they are looking to kind of, I think, bring in more lifestyle and concepts kind of in line with that bigger government plan to make the Somerset precinct a bit more like a youth-oriented kind of place. And yeah, so they announced yesterday that they're going to be bringing in Decathlon, the sports store, to kind of take over as an anchor tenant, so that'll be its first store on Orchard Road, which is, you know, kind of a plus. And also, I think a big draw of Decathlon is getting to try out a lot of stuff in the store, so that might be a crowd puller as well.
And do you know who it's going to attract? Timothy right here,
Yes.
who has been going to Decathlon. So Timothy, you covered the story that Decathlon will be taking over Metro at the Centrepoint. Can you tell us a bit more what you said in the story about, especially about how different this Decathlon store will be?
So let me first start out by saying that Decathlon itself has done pretty well since it came here in 2016. It's opened 6 outlets since then. It's doing quite a brisk business. Very large outlets as well, very well located. And in this particular outlet, they're planning to incorporate virtual simulations or augmented reality so that shoppers who are trying out different products can try it out in different environments, because they sell like a whole variety of sporting goods, right? So they didn't give many details on what exactly you can test out with this virtual reality, but in the other stores like the Kallang outlet, they have say like a gravel path where if you're testing out hiking equipment, you can walk there on the gravel path and see if your hiking equipment works on that path, which is quite a unique experience, I think, because a lot of these products, you don't really know how good they are until you test them out in that sort of environment. Aside from this, Decathlon is also going to be organizing yoga and Zumba classes within the Centrepoint outlet, which I think is quite a big draw for a lot of Singaporeans nowadays. And they'll also be organizing active sports demonstrations within the mall itself, which should draw a number of shoppers.
Now, experts that you quoted in your story, did it say something about Centrepoint maybe not having the right tenant mix or experiences to draw in the younger crowd? So do you think with a store with a major anchor tenant like Decathlon, do you think that alone is enough to draw in the crowds and keep them there?
To me?
Yeah, to both of you.
Oh,
to both.
I don't know that Decathlon alone would be enough because, like I said, there are quite a few vacant units already and others moving out. I mean, Decathlon will attract families and people like that, but whether there's other things to do in the mall or a good enough F&B mix, for example, I think that would also be quite an important factor.
Timothy?
Yeah, well, I mean, I definitely say it's a step in the right direction, at least, regardless of how things turn out. It certainly is something that the younger crowd would look forward to more, and I think that's the kind of audience that you want to capture in today's market. Yeah.
Thank you both for sharing your thoughts. Thank you. Now on to our last segment. Singaporeans love to eat and also throw away their food. Food waste is estimated to cost the Republic $2.50 more than $2 billion each year. To tackle this problem and reduce food waste, the Singapore government announced on August 27 that the country's first zero waste master plan will be launched later this week. To talk more about this, I have environment correspondent Audrey with me. Hi, Audrey.
Hi, Alyssa.
Sorry, so can you correct me on the amount of dollars that are lost every year due to food waste?
Okay, the figure cited in the recent study that was published is $2.54 billion.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Can you tell us more details about the Zero Waste Master Plan as well?
Okay, so the Zero Waste Master Plan is separate from the study that I just quoted. The Zero Waste Master Plan will be launched by the Ministry of the Environment and Water Resources later this week, so soon. And why this issue is of concern for Singapore is because food waste is one of the top 5 waste streams in Singapore, other than things like plastic and paper. So food waste refers to waste food that is discarded that is maybe still fit for consumption. And figures from the National Environment Agency actually showed that last year, 2018, we discarded 763,000 tons of food waste. And this is a 30% increase from 10 years ago. So that's the reason why the government is looking at this particular waste stream during this year, which also marks Singapore's year towards zero waste.
So why is there such a huge increase in the amount of food waste?
I guess Singaporeans are eating more and throwing away their food. I was at a panel session recently, and some of the panelists suggest that in Asian we have this culture where abundance is considered prosperity. So sometimes people order more than they can finish. So yeah.
Oh, that's actually a very simple reason. Right. So what are some suggestions or recommendations for Singapore on a broader level to cut down its food waste?
So there was a recent study commissioned by the Singapore Environment Council and done by consultancy Deloitte. So they actually found that, so Singapore imports about 2 million tons of fresh produce every year. And of this, 393,000 tons is actually lost. So this is kind of different from food waste. So food loss refers to food that leaks out of the supply chain from things like farm to table, and like through delivery trucks and stuff like that. And food waste refers to like the tail end, which is what I mentioned earlier, like people throwing out food. So the study, the SEC study actually looked at how the entire food supply chain, if it's overhauled, we can actually save some of this and channel some products into useful byproducts. So for example, eggs. If we use automation, we can reduce the amount of eggs broken. And if eggs do break, we can actually change or convert some of these broken eggs into byproducts like powdered eggs or liquefied eggs, something like along those lines. The study also mentioned using technology, so things like oxygen and oxygen sensors, for example, to determine how fresh vegetables can be kept. So it's a whole range of things which would require a huge shift in mentality and also a lot of investments into keeping food fresh and keeping up the infrastructure.
So now on an individual level, what can we do to reduce our food waste, and if we want to do our part?
I guess on the individual level, one thing would be to order only what you can finish and really just try to finish all your food. So recently the Singapore government has also said that they are considering implementing Good Samaritan laws. So Good Samaritan laws essentially provide some legal protection from civil suits, for example, for businesses who want to donate food. So I think some businesses may be afraid to do so because they are afraid that, what if someone eats or consumes the food donated and gets sick? So this Good Samaritan laws, which the government is mulling, might protect them from that. So today in today's papers, my colleague and I interviewed some F&B businesses, and most of them will welcome these laws as additional protection, but they also acknowledge that the onus was on them to ensure that the food is fresh. Yeah, so Good Samaritan laws may also establish food donation guidelines, so more people will be willing to donate. But all this is still in a very exploratory stage, and there are no concrete plans to implement them here yet. So that is how, individuals on our part can perhaps not order so much food. For businesses and farmers, they could invest in technology, which the government is helping them with some grants. And from businesses like F&B outlets, food donation to places like food bank is one option.
I'm just going to make a comment here, it's not a question. But as you were talking about this, I remembered that I recently went to a restaurant in Singapore, and they were very proud about the fact that they are zero waste. So they did educate the customer. They said, okay, this is the barramundi you ordered, and by the way, we dried the bones and then we powdered the bones, and now it's a garnish on this and this, and then we use the bones for our stock. So maybe F&B restaurants, they can, try to think of how they can also reduce their food waste.
Yeah,
and recycle.
So I agree. In fact, I think this practice, like what you just said, is practice overseas, like in countries in the United States. Also, some restaurants could allow for portion sizes. So instead of just serving one portion sizes, you could maybe have a half portion option. Yeah, so that is another way to do it. Food waste is not just a Singapore problem; it's also an international issue. So earlier this month, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change also released a report on climate change and land, and they found that globally about 25 to 30% of food actually goes to waste. So that is quite a big figure, and considering how agriculture is being impacted by changes in climate, right? Not enough rain, too much rain, or human drivers, maybe inappropriate use of land is making the land infertile. It is putting a lot of pressure on agriculture, and if we could just reduce the amount of food that is wasted, we could actually reduce some of that pressure and save food in the process.
Thank you, Audrey. That was very insightful.
Thanks, Alyssa.
Now, those were our top stories for the day. It's Wednesday. Happy Hump Day. Thank you for joining us. For more news and videos, do log on to straitstimes.com. Once again, I'm Alyssa. For more Big Story, join me here tomorrow, same time, same place.